All right, so good evening, everybody. My name is Christoph Lisai. I'm the Deputy Director of Public Works, and I oversee the Engineering and Resource Protection Division, which includes the team that manages the CSA 11 water system. So with us in attendance today, we have Mike Callaghy, the Executive County Manager. From Public Works, we have Ann Stillman in the back, our Director of Public Works, Mark Chow, who's our Principal Civil Engineer, and Tiffany Dang, who is our Senior Civil Engineer and who also work on CSA 11. Now, we do have Spanish translation, so if you guys need that, please come up here and we'll be able to provide that for you. And we are working to record this meeting and we're going to post it on our website. Everybody can hear me okay? Great. So we do have a pretty short presentation. It's about 30 minutes, and then the rest of the time we'll open it up for any questions that you guys have. So as you can see, the agenda is right here. First, we're going to go over the history of CSA 11, how it was formed, and then go over the operations of CSA 11. We'll then go over the finances, including how we collect revenue, what it pays for, and why the current rates are not sufficient. We'll then spend some time going over the proposed CSA 11 rates. We'll then go over the timeline for the rate setting process, which includes the Prop 218 notice. And then we'll go over a short slide of the options for service provision for CSA 11. Again, there'll be an opportunity at the end of the presentation to ask questions, so if you could please hold those towards the end. Now, CSA 11 was first conceptualized on October 13th, 1987, when the Board of Supervisors adopted a resolution requesting LAFCO to undertake proceedings for the formation. Shortly thereafter, on January 12th, the Board of Supervisors adopted another resolution which established CSA 11 per Government Code Section 25210. And at the time, CSA 11 boundaries were contiguous with the urban and rural service boundary area as defined by the County General Plan and the Local Coastal Program. And the intent of that was to be targeted and effective in meeting local needs. And then on October 10th in 1990, the County Planning Commission approved the coastal development permit for the construction of CSA 11. Now, there's several reasons for the formation, and we've tried to highlight the key ones here. At the time, about 40% of the private wells that provided water service to most of the homes were shallow and had high concentrations of nitrate and bacteria. There was a community interest in a public water system, and it was determined that there was an aquifer of adequate size and quality that was available. And so here you can see a photo of what a typical well probably looked like for some of the private homes. Now, CSA 11 provides water to about 102 customers right now. Of those, 80 are residential, which includes single and multifamily homes. 13 are commercial, which include the stores and restaurants. And then 9 are lumped in the other category, which include the fire station, the school, and the church. Funding for the original construction of CSA 11 came at about $1.3 million and was completed in 1992. The funding had multiple sources, the main one being the California Department of Water Resources, which provided a grant for about $400,000. They also provided a loan for $296,000 to support the construction, which we paid off over 20 years and was completely paid off in 2012. And then the County General Fund also loaned the remaining portion to construct the system, which was then paid off by the individual property owner assessments. Now, the original system included a 140,000 gallon treated water storage tank, 2 wells, a production well, and a standby emergency well, an alarm and telemetry system so we could monitor it remotely, cathodic protection for the storage tank to prevent corrosion, a chlorination and pump building, and then about 2.21 miles of various diameter water main, ranging from 8 inches to 4 inches. And then on the specific properties, it included backflow prevention devices, valves, the service laterals, and the meter boxes, and 17 fire hydrants. And so the photos here, the upper right photo shows the original storage tank as well as the pump house. And then the lower photo shows one of the original wells and the wellhead. Now, the department retained a firm, Todd Engineers, back in 2002 to perform a full assessment of the CSA 11 water system. Several recommendations came out of that report, including to monitor the water surface elevations of the wells. And so this graph shows the monitoring of the water surface elevations that we've taken in approximately October measurements. And as you can see, the water well elevations were dropping. The trend shows that over the last 22 years, the water has dropped about 9.75 feet, which is about half a foot a year. Now, because of the recommendations of the report and the continuous lowest readings from well 1, in 2018, we completed the CSA 11 water supply sustainability and new storage tank project at a cost of just over $2 million. This constructed a deeper well and a second treated water storage tank of another 140,000 gallons, which basically doubled our treated water capacity. We also drilled the well 100 feet deeper than well 1. Again, the Division of Water Resources provided a Prop 84 grant for the funding of the project for about $700,000. And then actually the County General Fund funded the remaining portion, which is about $1.376 million. I would like to note that CSA 11 ratepayers did not pay for any portion of this project. Now, this photo shows the new treated water tank that extended the water capacity and storage capacity. And the project allowed CSA 11 to extend its use of the aquifer by accessing deeper levels and layers within a confined aquifer that is otherwise limited and was experiencing declining water levels. It also provided enhanced emergency response capabilities by giving us that additional storage. So this graphic just shows a comparison of the existing well compared to the new well. And I understand you can't really see the text or the writing, but it's just a comparison to show how much deeper the existing well is, which is 100 feet below the mean sea level. In 2021, Todd Engineers completed an updated assessment of the water system based after we completed the construction of the project in well 3, and we were able to obtain real-world data. Well 3's available drawdown is about 45 feet, suggesting that the longevity of the well is estimated to be about 90 years, based on assuming the existing pumping rates and the fact that we're losing about half a foot a year in the water well surface elevations. Additionally, well 3 is estimated to supply the existing demand plus the demands anticipated for the Pescadero High School and the relocated fire station for at least the next 30 to 40 years. And connecting the high school to the CSA 11 water system would increase annual water usage by about 835 gallons per day, which is about 4.3% of the existing use. Moving the existing fire station to the new location has incremental increase in water use. While we understand there will be some uses at the old station, they basically will transfer their current account to the new location. Again, we continue to monitor the well elevations of the new well. And so let me explain some of the data here. The well was constructed in 2018, but was not put into operation until 2021, which is why you see the static elevation of 82 feet for the first 3 years. Once we started using the well elevation, it did drop about 8 feet to the readings you show. However, it has been fairly consistent over the last 4 years. We still don't feel like we have enough data to accurately represent the function of this well, and so we are using that 0.5 feet drop per year for any of our future projections of the aquifer life. So now turning over to the operations of the system. CSA 11 is structured in that it's governed by the County Board of Supervisors. The Department of Public Works provides staff for the operation, maintenance, and administration of CSA 11, as well as CSA 7, which is a smaller system located in La Honda and has about 70 customers. The regulatory compliance, oversight, and permitting is through the Division of Drinking Water, from the Division of Water Resources. And we do have to have an operator who's responsible for the operation and maintaining the system. Now, this operator has to be state certified, and we do not have anybody in-house that is state certified. And so we have been contracting with a firm called Bracewell Engineering Incorporated, who's been under contract to operate both CSA 11 and CSA 7 since 2011. Now, we do go through a competitive request for proposal process on a 3 to 5 year basis. And Bracewell Engineering has been the only qualified firm that's either submitted a proposal or submitted a proposal that was of adequate quality. Now, there's a lot that goes into the administration and operation of the system. And one of the big things that we're required to do is the permit compliance as required by the Division of Drinking Water. So some of the things that goes into the permit requirements includes monthly water surface elevation monitoring for all 3 wells. monthly and annual distribution system water sampling, testing, and well monitoring reports that are submitted to the Division of Drinking Water, bi-monthly water reading, the annual consumer confidence report that's developed and distributed to all of the CSA 11 customers, alarm system testing, the storage tank level monitoring for the 2 tanks and periodic inspection of those tanks, and then the annual backflow prevention, assembly inspection, repair, and certification for the 102 backflow prevention devices that we have within the system. Additionally, Bracewell is tasked with emergency response and repair, which includes investigation, communication with the customers, the department, and the Division of Drinking Water, posting waters if there's a break, like boil water notice, performing all the subsequent testing to make sure that the water is safe, and then lifting the water boil notice. Now, DPW is mainly tasked with the administration of the system, and so that includes the billing and the rate structure. So customers are billed on a bi-monthly basis. So the rates include a meter service charge and a water use charge. The meter charge is a per connection flat rate based on the meter size. And then we do have tier rates that are based on a 2-month water consumption usage on a per unit basis, where 1 unit equals 748 gallons of use. And there are properties located within the current CSA 11 boundaries that can connect to the system as long as they provide a buy-in charge and a connection fee and a meter deposit. However, we don't take any of those calculations into account when we're setting rates because those are inconsistent and not something that we can rely on. We have about 20-ish properties that have yet to connect to the CSA 11 system from the original assessments. Now, CSA 11 is considered an independent special district with its own separate budget. It receives no property taxes because CSA 11 was formed after the implementation of Prop 13. We do manage some sewer systems that were formed prior to Prop 13, and they do collect some of the tax revenue. However, CSA 11 is strictly, the only revenue comes from water service sales and meter service charges. Occasionally, there is some revenue from connections and buy-in charges, but again, that's inconsistent. And the recurrent rates do not adequately support the system operation and maintenance. And one thing I would like to note is our fund reserve, or what we consider our savings account, as of June 30th of last year, is only $28,133. Now, this is a chart that shows what would happen if we are unable to increase rates. So there's a lot of information here, so let me go over it. The bar on the left in blue is the projected expenditures that we're anticipating over the next 5 years. And then the bar graph in orange is the projected revenue without rate increases. The numbers at the top in red are our fund balance or reserve account, and the line shows the declining fund reserve. Now, as you can see, for this next fiscal year, we anticipate that our expenditures are going to be $123,600, while our revenue based on last year's consumption is only going to be about $73,680. So this is a net deficit of about $50,000. And as you can see, the next year, our fund balance drops from a negative $29,000 to a negative $80,000. Now this trend continues. The rates are flat. So every year we have $73,680 in revenue. However, expenses continue to increase. So in this exercise, we're anticipating expenses to increase at about 1% per year. And that's due to the increased cost of utilities, increased cost of Bracewell staff's time, as well as DPW staff charges. And so as you can see, each year the expenses continue to grow marginally. However, our income stays flat. And so we continue to lower our fund reserve. Based on the current projections, our fund reserve will be a negative $300,000 at the end of this 5-year term, which is not something we can realistically sustain. And again, one of the reasons we're here before you today. So now I want to turn the focus on the proposed rates and what we've developed. So we are proposing to continue a tiered rate structure to encourage conservation. The new rates are consistent with the construction cost index, which is published by the Engineering News Record over the last 12 years, from 2012 to about 2025. And we are proposing significant increases in the first 2 years at about 50% in the first year, followed by another 30% increase the following year. And this is done in a way so that we can align rates where they would have been if we had been able to increase rates over the last 12 years. And I would like to know that the Consumer Price Index for the Bay Area for fuels and utilities over the last same 12-year period came in at 94%. And we are looking to set rates at about 5 years for 5 years. And that's because this does take a significant amount of effort and we want to not have to spend that time every 3 years. Now, the rates are intended to support the projected cost increases, both for the operation and the maintenance of CSA 11. They also are intended to repay an outstanding loan, which was about $58,800, plus the accrued interest, which we obtained during the 2011 water outage. And we also would like to work to develop the minimum fund reserve, which we're setting at 50% of the operation and maintenance cost, plus a 3% of the value of the water system, which is approximately $150,000. And then lastly, say for the long-term capital improvement needs. This includes a meter replacement program, as well as addressing the long-term limitations of the aquifer through further studies and looking for a secondary water source. So this slide is a comparison of CSA 11, both the current rates and the proposed rates. So the bar graph on the left is the current rates, which are based off of 10 units of use billed on a monthly basis. So based on the current rates, a monthly user would pay $54.90. Based on with our proposed increases, next year that would go up to about $85.40 on a monthly basis. This is a monthly comparison, just because we're trying to compare to the other water districts that's bill on a monthly. Yeah, so we do bill bi-monthly. So basically you would double this, which you would see every 2 months. However, just to compare apples to apples, we're comparing what the monthly cost would be. Now, as you can see, the other districts in the area include the North Coast County Water District, which has over 12,000 connections, Coastside County Water District, which has over 7,500 connections, Montero Water and Sanitation District, which has over 1,600 connections, and then CSA 7, which has 70 connections. So one thing I'd like to bring your attention to is the number of connections go down. You can see the cost of water goes up. And based on the 102 connections, even with the proposed rates, CSA 11 water will still be the cheapest in the area. Now, I want to get into more detail about our proposed increases over the next 5 years. So this shows several things. It shows the tiers that we currently have established in our current rates, as well as the meter charge for a 5/8" meter, which is the majority of the meters that we have within CSA 11. So you can see tier 1 is when you use 0 to 11 HCF for units per bi-monthly period. The next tier is when you use 12 to 25. Tier 3 is 26 to 40. And then tier 4 is anything over 40 units. So next year, our proposal effective July 1st, 2025, so effective with the July billing, we propose a 50% increase in the tiers, which would be jump the tier 1 rate from $2.69 per unit to $4.04 per unit. Tier 2 would go up from $4.04 to $6.06. The next tier would go up to $8.18, and the final tier 4 would go up $11.04. We also included the meter charge, and again, this is billed on a monthly basis. So this is currently we have a $28 monthly charge on your bill, which is billed twice per billing cycle. And we're proposing a 30% increase on that, which would increase it to $36.40. Moving into the next year, which would be effective July 1st of 2026, we are proposing a 30% increase. So again, you can see the monthly meter rates here. Tier 1 would go up to $5.25. Tier 2 would be $7.88. Tier 3 would be $10.63. Tier 4 would be $14.35. And the monthly charge for the meter would go up to $45.50. The following year, we're proposing another 25% increase, effective July 1st of 2027. And you can see again, tier 1 would be at $6.56. Tier 2 at $9.85. Tier 3 at $13.29. Tier 4 at $17.94. And the meter charge would go up to $56.88. The last 2 years have slightly lower increases. The effective July 1st of 2028, there'd be a 15% increase. So again, tier 1 would go up to $7.54. Tier 2 would be $11.33. Tier 3 would be $15.28, and tier 4 would be $20.63. The meter charge would go up 20% to $68.26. And then finally, the last rate last year of the rates, which would be effective July 1st of 2029, we're proposing a 3% increase, which would bring the rates for Tier 1 to $7.77, Tier 2 $11.67, Tier 3 to $15.74, Tier 4 to $21.25, and the meter charge to $70.31. So we did have a handout at the front if you guys aren't able to grab it. That includes all of this information. So here's just some water use scenarios for CSA 11. As you can see, the majority of customers are either in the Tier 1 or Tier 2 category, with 54 of our accounts, 54 or a little bit over half in Tier 1. Another 37 accounts are in Tier 2. We have 5 accounts in Tier 3 and 6 accounts that are in Tier 4. So this page goes into the same information that I went over earlier, but I do want to go over some key changes that we're proposing. So we are adding new meter sizes to the ones that we currently don't have. So we are going to be adding a 1-inch meter, which is going to be affecting 2 accounts. We'll also be adding a 2-inch meter, which is going to be affecting another 2 accounts, as well as a 4-inch meter, which will affect 1 account. And then the tier information is what I went over earlier. And again, we provided this in a handout, and all of this will be posted online if you guys want to dive into the details at a later date. We do have other charges that CSA 11 has and that we are also proposing to increase. So some of these include service connection charge. So for a 5/8 by 3/4 to a 1-inch, our current charge is $660, and we're proposing to increase that to about $995 for the first year. And then incrementally after that, the 1.5-inch to 4-inch connection would go up from $1,650 to $2,485. Again, and this is only for the newer connections, so not any existing accounts. And then a fire detector test would go up from $1,650 to about $2,485. We also have a buy-in charge, and that's actually updated every year based on the construction cost index for the area. And we actually don't have that for last year yet, and so we don't have the effective rate for 2025. But the current rate for a 5/8 by 3/4 connection is about $15,538 to buy in. And for a 1.5-inch connection or larger, it's $19,422. We are also proposing some incremental increases to our meter deposit from $35 to $55, and a little bit more for larger meters from about $250 to about $375. And then lastly, our bulk water rate permits. So we don't typically sell bulk water because of the limited aquifer for the system. However, we are looking to increase those as well. If you're getting 1,500 gallons or less, that would go up from about $1,500 to $25. And over 1,500 gallons would go up from $3,000 to $5,000. Lastly, there's some miscellaneous fees. So there's a delinquency fee that we're proposing to increase by about $20. The meter test, which will go up by about $100. Reinstalling the meter for if we had to remove it for non-payment, meter replacement at a customer's request, fire hydrant flow testing, and relocating meter service from obstructions. And all of these are proposed to be increased based on the actual costs we're seeing for Bracewell to do the work. And so now this is a graph showing the anticipated revenue and expenditures if we're successful in raising the rates. And so as you can see, our first thing is the fund reserve line is starting to go up. So starting next fiscal year, we're anticipating expenses similar to what we showed earlier, which is about $123,600. However, our revenue has significantly increased to about $100,000. And so this is about $20,000 deficit. However, we feel like we can capture it within our existing fund balance. And so our fund balance drops to about $9,500. The following year, we continue to raise rates and our expenses increase incrementally. And as you can see, we're spending about $125,000 in expenses. However, we're starting to bring in about $129,000 in revenue. So now we're able to build our fund balance. The following year, we have if the rate goes into effect, again, our expenses come in at about $126,000, but now our revenue is about $160,000, which means we have a surplus of about $44,000, which is added to our fund balance. And as you can see, this trend continues the following year. Our expenses are estimated to be about $130,000, while our revenue continues to climb to about $190,000, further increasing our fund balance. At this point, we've met our fund reserve target of about $150,000. And so now we can start saving for some future capital improvements and the meter replacement program. And then the following year, our expenses are anticipated to be about $130,000, while our revenue is about $195,000, and our fund balance continues to grow. So here's the timeline that we plan to go with for the rate setting process. So next Tuesday, we will be going to our Board of Supervisors to set the public hearing date for April 8th. Around February 3rd, we will be sending the Prop 218 notices to everybody who's a property owner or a customer of CSA 11. We send those 45 days prior to the public hearing. And finally, on April 8th, we will have the public hearing and work to adopt the new rates, pending no majority protest. Now, for the April 8th hearing, it is held at the County Board of Supervisors. We have a new location in our new county office building, which is located at 500 County Center on the first floor. And it is set for a specified time on April 8th at 9 a.m. So before I complete my presentation, I did want to go over some of the options that we've looked into for the provisions of service for CSA 11. I know there's been some desire from the community for us to start looking into this. And so the first one is if DPW continues to provide service, as we have since the formation of the system in 1992. Other things that we've looked into is to contract service. So we would look for a firm that does all of the work that DPW and Bracewell does. Anything that requires DPW to step out of operation and maintenance will also require for us to hand over the permit from the Division of Drinking Water to whoever the new operator is. And so it's just another layer of complexity that we have to consider when we look into any of these things. Another option that we've heard has some potential community support is converting to a community-based and operated water system. With this, we've checked in with our LAFCO counterparts, and they have stated that any community-based water system will need to show that they have the financial resources to be able to provide support, operation, and maintenance of the system. And then the next two include shared service with other water agencies in the area or acquisition by another water system. Unfortunately, CSA 11 is pretty isolated and not close to any of the other water systems, so we don't feel like there's going to be any significant cost savings by working with another water system. And none of the other water system in the areas have shown any interest in acquiring CSA 11. And then lastly, there's other options that may be available to us, and we'd be happy to look into should they come across our desk. One last thing before we get to questions is we do have an emergency response number 24/7 available through Bracewell. And so things that we consider an emergency include no water or low water pressure in your home. If you see a water main break anywhere within the CSA 11 boundaries, a faulty backflow device, or if you have an odor or murky water. So Bracewell Engineering's on call, they monitor 24/7, is shown here. And then if you guys have any billing related or administrative type questions, you can give Public Works a call at the number below. And with that, that completes my presentations. And so I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys may have.